of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Thursday, August 24th, 2023. My name is Emma Vigeland in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Richard Wiles, president of the Center for Climate Integrity, on the possibility of Biden's DOJ suing oil companies. And later in the show, Eleni Schirmer of the Debt Collective will be with us to discuss the state of student debt relief 1 year since Biden first attempted to cancel it more broadly. Meanwhile, the first Republican debate sans Trump was last night. Hope you tuned into our coverage. DeSantis was quiet, Vivek was out the trail. Chris Christie looked weak as hell.
Cackling Vivek, they call him.
He's got to work on that one. Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Eastman, and the other coup plotters were booked and mugshotted yesterday in Georgia. And Trump is today. And in that Georgia case, Trump is switching lawyers, so things are going great. It's all but confirmed. Wagner Group leader Prigozhin, who tried to seize power from Putin 2 months ago, presumed dead after his plane fell from the sky. Fed officials set to meet at their annual conference, and despite inflation being down significantly, more rate hikes could be on the table because Powell sucks. Biden set to announce the 10 drugs selected for drug negotiations, direct negotiations between Medicare and pharma companies, which would drastically lower their costs. The South Carolina Supreme Court upholds the state's near total abortion ban. The Florida Board of Education approves new anti-trans bathroom rules that would apply to colleges that get taxpayer money as well. Apple caves and endorses right to repair legislation in California, meaning their monopoly over repair could be broken. The DOJ is cracking down on stolen COVID relief funds. 3,100 have been charged. More than 350 wildfires have broken out in Greece in the past 5 days. And lastly, breaking news, the DOJ is suing SpaceX over discriminating against refugees and asylum seekers in their hiring processes. All this and more on today's Majority Report. I just saw an IM that I loved. Aaron is not cool says, can we get some applause emojis in the chat for Emma this week? Hosting the GOP debate stream last night in a final boss fight with her landlord, making her best friend Bride weep, hosting this week in Sam's absence, all while being unable to open doors in her home. We'll see her out the trail, you know? I love that. I made some progress, though. The AC, at least, even though the floors are messed up, the AC, we have some progress on that front. But hope you guys tuned into our late night coverage. I mean, starting the debate at 9 p.m. is slightly cruel, but we had a great time. And Sam, I didn't think he was going to end up joining, but he hopped on for a little. We had some fun. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. Let's just start talking about this right off the bat here. The debate last night had a very bizarre vibe, as Sam observed. None of the candidates really went after DeSantis at all. They went after the guy in third right now, Vivek. And that would make sense based on past track records of these kinds of things if DeSantis were the front runner. But he's not. It's Trump, the guy who wasn't there. It's almost this has happened before. Remember the Democratic debates, how no one really went after Biden enough, and it ended up being Warren and Bernie going at it, and Tulsi versus Kamala, the lower tier candidates eating each other up. And that was somewhat reflective in this debate, but the problem is that DeSantis isn't the number one guy. He's like 30 to 40 points behind the number one guy. And they were all afraid to take on Trump. We'll talk about this later in the show, but the only candidate on that stage out of 8 who did not raise their hand to say they would support Trump as the nominee even if he were convicted was Asa Hutchinson. Chris Christie, for all his tough talk, tried to play it off that he was, just raising his hand to get in the conversation. It was a bizarre, weak move. So at the very least, the best case scenario for him is that his answer on that is muddled. And there were just some other things like, DeSantis seemed entirely ornamental. He abandoned wokeness. I don't even think he said the word woke once because it's not testing well with Republicans anymore. And so that's the kind of slimy guy that he is. And I think that comes through. On Ukraine, Vivek was going hard against funding it. Then the more establishment Republicans like Nikki Haley, they were going at each other on that.
It's important to also add that the funding of Ukraine was a missed opportunity to both agitate against China by invading Mexico, basically.
Yes, right. I almost memory hold that. And there also was some really concerning stuff on abortion, like the Christian theocrats, Mike Pence, Asa Hutchinson, waxing poetically about a federal abortion ban. DeSantis and Tim Scott danced around it. So lots of scary stuff. But the reality of that sideshow was that the guy who was the presumptive nominee by every polling metric was not there. And it doesn't seem like any amount of legal trouble is going to change that from an electoral perspective. He was instead on X with Tucker. Tucker Carlson has a show on Twitter, known television or streaming medium. I thought they abandoned the Periscope thing, but Elon Musk's like, let's bring that back. This time, Tucker sat down with Donald Trump, pre-recorded interview, and they aired it. Tucker was giving a middle finger to Fox for firing him, and Trump was giving a middle finger to the rest of the Republican nominees by airing this in the middle of the debate. And this is how the interview ended. Tucker is asking Trump here if he thinks that the country is headed towards a civil war. Oh boy.
Legally. Do you think we're moving towards civil war?
There's tremendous passion and there's tremendous love. January 6th was a very interesting day because they don't report it properly. I believe it was the largest crowd I've ever spoken before. And some of the crowds I've spoken before. And like July 4th on the mall.
Oh my God, the crowd size thing.
I think they had 1 million people there. But I think that the biggest crowd I've ever spoken before was on January 6th. And people that were in that crowd, a very, very small group of people, and we said patriotically and peacefully and patriotically, right? Nobody ever says that. Go peacefully and patriotically. But people that were in that crowd that day, very small group of people went down there, and then there are a lot of scenarios that we can talk about. But people in that crowd said it was the most beautiful day they've ever experienced. There was love in that crowd. There was love and unity.
Can you pause it for a sec? So I'm wondering how he even launched into January 6th, because Tucker just asked him, are we headed towards civil war? And that would be fine if he wanted to make that pivot. But you're currently under a big microscope by federal prosecutor and the special counsel Jack Smith because of your actions in part on January 6th and the coup attempt and plotting that led up to that point. And tomorrow, buddy, you're going down to Georgia to get fingerprinted and mugshotted for your actions related to the election. So his desire to talk about this, I mean, he really can't help himself. He cannot help himself. And his lack of discipline is such a gift to prosecutors. But let's keep going.
People in that crowd said it was the most beautiful day they've ever experienced. There was love in that crowd. There was love and unity. I have never seen such spirit and such passion and such love. And I've also never seen simultaneously and from the same people such hatred of what they've done to our country.
So do you think it's possible that there's open conflict? We seem to be moving towards something.
I don't know, because I don't know what it, I can say this. There's a level of passion that I've never seen. There's a level of hatred that I've never seen, and that's probably a bad combination.
Donald Trump, thank you.
Thank you very
much. Wow. It sounds like he's talking about, like, the New York Giants fan club relative to the Philadelphia Eagles one or something. I mean, there's a lot of love there and a lot of passion, but a lot of hatred for the Eagles. I'd like...
Donald Trump, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I mean...
more hate than ever, his dad was detained at a KKK rally.
Yeah.
Speaking of
We're not
passion and
going
hatred.
to have a civil war. There's not like a split that could easily happen, like happened in our civil war between like the North and South, like the plantation economies of the South and the Northern industrial.
Don't tell that to Tim Pool.
Like at the very most, we're going to have like these stochastic events of violence, but like an actual civil war between, I don't see it.
I mean, but did you see the passion on that day? Did you see the love? They're very passionate about their hatred, and they love overturning the democratic results of an election. It's Orwellian's overused, but war is peace, freedom, slavery. I guess hate is love now. It's just the guy is a lunatic of the highest order, and he's dangerous. But we'll play more of Trump when we get to other parts of the interview, including the question about Jeffrey Epstein in the fun half. But first, a word from one of our sponsors, Rhone. Rhone is honestly an amazing investment in your closet. It's really difficult to find pieces that you can wear to the workplace that aren't wrinkled or that are, they tend to be uncomfortable, some of those more traditional fabrics, but Rhone is not that. Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, and Rhone stepped up to the challenge. Rhone's commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man, and here's why. Rhone helps you get ready for any occasion with the commuter collection, which offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Rhone commuter collection. Rhone's comfortable four-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to work to your 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident without the hassle. With Rhone's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the products. It's that easy. I've got to say, I have firsthand knowledge of this. My boyfriend has a Rhone button down. It looks very fancy, but then when you feel it, you're like, oh my gosh, that's the most comfortable stuff. It feels like athleisure, but it does not look like it. And dry cleaning is a pain. It's a pain and it's costly. So if you need, to dress up a little bit, this is really the perfect solution, and it's an investment in yourself. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. On top of that, Rhone is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. As I mentioned, yes, my boyfriend has the button down. It's very helpful, and we can get around the dry cleaning, as I mentioned, which I can't stand. All that plastic, and you got to pick it up. It's a pain. The commuter collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to Rhone, RHONE.com/majority report and use the promo code majority report to save 20% off your entire order. Again, that's Rhone, RHONE.com/majority report. Use the promo code majority report to save 20% off your entire order. 20% when you head to Rhone.com/majority report. It's time to find your corner office comfort. All right, guys, quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Richard Wiles.
Thank you, Emma. Sponsor for today's program, GiveWell. I've talked about GiveWell many times in the past. When you donate money to a charity, a lot of times you're going to wonder, how much impact is my dollars actually making? It's hard to find out information, hard to know like which charities are spending what on what, and are what they doing effective. But if you're interested in having in giving money to a charity, and you want to know what is creating the most meaningful difference for some of the poorest people in the world, check out GiveWell. They have research, evidence-backed, high-impact giving opportunities, and they share their work for everyone for free. GiveWell has spent over 15 years researching charitable organizations. They only recommend a few of the highest impact opportunities they found. Over 100,000 donors have used GiveWell to donate more than $1 billion. Rigorous evidence suggests that these donations will save over 150,000 lives and improve the lives of millions more. GiveWell wants as many donors as possible to make informed decisions about high-impact giving. You can find all of their research and recommendations on their site. It is totally free. You can make a tax-deductible donation to their recommended funds or organizations in GiveWell, and GiveWell does not take a cut. There's all sorts of things that are on their top list. Bed nets to prevent malaria. $5 can provide one net. Nets can reduce the number of malaria infections. Enough nets and a large drop in infections can save a life in expectation. Preventative medication for malaria costs about $7 to provide a child with malaria treatment through high malarial season. These treatments reduce the amount of malaria infections, and with enough treatments, also save a life in expectation. Vitamin A supplements, it costs about $1 a day. It costs about $1, I should say, to deliver vitamin A supplement to a child. Vitamin A deficiency can increase mortality rates. Vitamin A distributions can save a life by reducing vitamin A deficiency. Cash incentives for things like routine childhood vaccines cost about $160 to vaccinate an infant. This funding provides cash transfers to incentivize caregivers to bring in babies to clinics for routine childhood vaccinations. I found Give directly through GiveWell, no relation. We've donated thousands via the show to Give directly. They give great recommendations over at GiveWell. You can find exactly how much of the money is going to the charity and what impact it has. Go to givewell.org to find out more or make a donation. And if you make a donation, let them know you heard about it by choosing podcast when they ask you, how did you hear about us? And enter the Majority Report, Sam Seder, at checkout. Again, that's givewell.org. And let them know that we sent you by choosing podcast and Majority Report. Givewell.org. Now back to the show.
We are back, and we are joined now by Richard Wiles, president of the Center for Climate Integrity. Richard, thanks so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So your group is spearheading some efforts to hold big oil accountable for the effects of climate change through litigation, which is, I think, a really promising avenue, especially because, and we'll get into this, Senate progressives agree with you. But just tell us a bit more about your work in this space and why you feel this is a viable path forward.
Yeah, if you look through history, you'll see that no giant social problems like climate change have ever been solved without a litigation strategy. The climate movement tried for decades to, solve climate change through the Congress. They failed there. Now, the courts are not a place where you're going to solve climate change, but there are some things you can do through the courts that are really important. And the main one, we think, is to hold them accountable for their lying, right? The companies knew 40 or 50 years ago, maybe even 60, that their products would cause climate change. They called it catastrophic themselves. And then they ran the most consequential disinformation campaign in the history of humanity that put us in the situation we're in today. So we think that at a minimum, we need to engage the courts to hold the companies accountable for that. And that would mean that they should pay for the damages that were caused by their products, which they knew 40 years ago would cause those damages. And that could be anything from just sea level rise to, the catastrophic impacts of something like Hurricane Maria. So they need to pay up basically and be held accountable for that. And you can only do that through the courts.
And I mean, this is a very similar tactic to the DOJ under Clinton and Bush successfully suing Big Tobacco. So there's precedent for this.
Yeah, there is. And also all the state cases that were brought, the 40 some odd attorneys general that sued both the tobacco companies and the opioid companies is a really good example of this. Companies that lie about their product, they know it's going to kill people, just like the fossil fuel guys did. And then they were ultimately held financially accountable for that.
Right. So can you talk about how it got to the point where I guess it was on a few weeks ago at the end of July, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Markey, and Merkley, who are definitely, I think, considered the four most progressive senators, they wrote a letter to Merrick Garland asking if for him to go after Exxon and Shell and other big oil companies. Your take on that effort by Senate progressives?
Well, that's not the first time these letters have gone over to DOJ. That's the first thing to know. This is a sort of a one in a long series of letters and requests to the department to basically do what the department did to tobacco, as you said, file a racketeering case, against the industry, because it's clear that the industry orchestrated what is called, I guess we all know this now because of Trump, a corrupt enterprise that, for decades, spread disinformation about climate change and undermined the country's ability to deal with it. So what the senators and members of the House are requesting is that the DOJ take a similar action as they did with tobacco against big oil. The cases that have been filed to date, I should say, there's several that have racketeering claims in them, right? So there's a little bit of a precedent out there, if you will, where in New Jersey and in Puerto Rico, there have been racketeering cases filed. And what the members of Congress are saying is like, look, the DOJ is the most powerful law firm in the world, right? The largest law firm in the world. You'd be bringing the power of the federal government to bear against the companies here in what they feel and what we feel, is a pretty strong case that the companies engaged in a racketeering enterprise, to deceive the public about what their products would do and all the disasters that we see unfolding pretty much on a daily basis now.
Well, in the wake of what's happening in Maui, this would be an action that would make absolute sense. You mentioned that this is not the first time that this kind of letter has been written. Bernie Sanders and Ted Lieu, I believe, sent a similar letter to Loretta Lynch at the end of Obama's second term, trying to get them to look into big oil in this way. But if you could expand on some of those efforts by states and municipalities to sue big oil for the consequences of their actions and their cover-up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think right now you've got 8 attorneys general and about 36 municipalities that have brought cases against big oil, basically saying they knew that their products would cause climate change, and then they lied about it. And so they've got to pay for the damage, right? They've got to pay for the adaptation costs that all these cities and states are going to have to bear as they attempt to survive climate change. The attorney general's cases tend to focus on the lying. They're more traditional fraud cases under consumer protection laws. The municipal cases tend to focus on the damages. In other words, look, we got to build seawalls and cooling centers. We got to expand the storm drainage. We got to move the sewage treatment plant. We got to protect our drinking water. We have this endless list of costs that we have. And we didn't cause this problem. You did, because you knew your products would do this 50 years ago. We didn't. Then you thrust this damage on us, and you need to pay to help us pay your fair share, if you will, to help us pay for these adaptations. And the thing about that is, and the reason the companies fear these cases so much is because if you think about the costs here, we're well into the trillions of dollars. I mean, if they were held accountable for their fair share of all the adaptation costs for every municipality and state in the country, this is an existential threat to them, and they know it. So, I mean, it's not only is it important morally, it's also, I think, in terms of, moving the nation forward, at least to get to the point where we can survive climate change. This is absolutely necessary because cities can't afford these costs. There's no way. There's just no way. If the oil companies aren't held accountable, a lot of these adaptation measures just won't happen.
What would be then the benefit of the federal government taking a RICO, a stance, bringing RICO charges versus fraud?
Right. So the thing that the Department of Justice can do that nobody else can do, first of all, they're not bound by a statute of limitations. So they can build a case that goes all the way back to the 1970s and 80s when the first evidence we have of the company's prior knowledge and initial deception has surfaced. So they can use the entire body of evidence to make their case. Now, they're not under federal RICO law. They can't get giant punitive damages or a multi-trillion-dollar damage award. They cannot do that. But what they can do is force the companies to tell the truth, right? They could force the companies to issue statements broadly, very widely every time they ran an ad, for example, that said there is no climate safe fossil fuel, for example. Or they could, be forced to say that carbon capture, which is their latest fraud, is no substitute for emissions reductions. Or they could be forced to say that natural gas is not a climate safe fuel. There's a whole number of corrective statements that they could be forced to make, and essentially be forced to tell the truth, at a very wide scale, which would completely undermine their current ongoing greenwashing and general bullshit that they put out there about how they're, trying to solve the problem. They would be exposed as the cause of the problem and as perpetuating that through the lies that they've been telling. And I think that, were the Department of Justice to achieve those corrective statements, it would be a total game changer because all of the garbage that the companies put out there about how they're trying to solve the problem would be exposed for just exactly what it is.
Biden might have some explaining to do for his funding of 2 carbon capture projects and 2 carbon capture projects and 2 more on the way.
Right. Well, I think, if DOJ filed this case, he'd have a pretty good claim to taking a very aggressive position against big oil. Not that the White House would be the ones that did it, but his administration would certainly, probably pick up a few points with people who care about climate if they delivered such an action.
Yeah, and I mean, we covered last night the Republican debate, and every single answer on climate change was an absolute just disgusting disaster about burning more coal, burning more oil. I mean, they revel in it. So that's not to say that a Republican would be any better by any stretch of the imagination, of course, but it is just something to note that, like, I would say that the Biden administration has been a little bit two steps forward, 1 step back in this degree when it comes to green lighting certain projects. Yes, the electric vehicle stuff is great, but this would be a stance that is appropriately aggressive given or a step that is appropriately aggressive given the scope of the problem that we're facing and that we're experiencing. And we have been for years, but very acutely this summer. I think more Americans are starting to understand what our future looks like.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's be clear that the administration has, let's just say, been all over the place on climate, right? So they do some good things. They do some things that, that are just plain, bad. But this action would, I think, go a long way to undermining the industry in a fundamental way if they were forced to tell the truth. Man, I just can't emphasize how important it is for the industry to be able to continue to lie and, gaslight the world about what they're doing. Their net zero commitments, which are complete BS, right? And everything else they say, carbon capture, all of that. It just needs to be exposed for what it is, and not just by, environmentalists or, people like me and you. If it's coming from the DOJ and it's coming from the oil companies, okay, if they're forced to say it, that's the game changer. So, I mean, that's the kind of pressure that this kind of litigation can put on the companies. And you really can't achieve that kind of result through any other means. There's the Congress is never going to do that, right?
Yes.
You can see that with opioids and tobacco. So the only way to get the truth out there would be through action by the Department of Justice.
Well, because, we will, we will both speak on the show about what's realistic, and your path is more realistic, and what would be ideal, which would be, in my opinion, nationalizing these companies and phasing them out systemically with the government involvement. But of course, given how much money is sloshing around in Congress and the filibuster in the Senate, that's just not a very likely path, even though that is an action that would meet the scope of what we're facing. Go ahead.
So let's, I think the other thing we haven't talked about is the narrative value of these cases, right?
Yeah.
That's not why anyone would bring the case. That's not why these communities are bringing the case. They're not bringing the case so that, members of Congress talk differently about it. But it's just a true fact, if you look at it, that, when the Sackler name came off the art museum, right, that was a big blow for them, right? The reputational damage to the pharmaceutical companies that produce the opioids has, been devastating. And the same with tobacco. Nobody's looking to the tobacco industries for healthcare advice. It's just their reputation, is in the garbage can, right? And so I think that's an important outcome, a corollary benefit, if you will, of these cases, is that they establish for once and for all that these companies knew and lied about climate change, and they don't give a damn what happens. Obviously, they're increasing production. They obviously don't care if climate change accelerates, and they'll continue to lie about it and lie about their commitments to the solutions until somehow they're forced to change that. But when all that happens, I think it's safe to say that their political capital will be significantly diminished, right? If they're paying trillions of dollars in damages and they're exposed for the liars that they are, it's just a lot harder for them to block action in the Congress, right? That's just the fact of it. Now, that's not why anybody's bringing the cases. That's just something that I think the cases can provide. They give legitimacy through documents that come from the industry themselves, right? Documents from inside the companies where they're saying the things I'm saying. They're predicting catastrophe 40 years ago. They're choreographing the disinformation campaign. So when that becomes sort of common knowledge, I think that just changes the entire zeitgeist about, the power balance moving forward as we try to solve climate change, which again, won't happen through the courts, but the courts can help.
Before I let you go, I'm wondering if you could give some of those egregious examples you've touched on. The internal scientists at some of companies like ExxonMobil, knowing exactly what the outcome of burning all these fossil fuels is, and yet the public statements being so different from these companies. If you don't mind fleshing out exactly what that looked like and what some of the publicly available knowledge is on that front.
Well, one thing is the Exxon team back in the 70s and early 80s was probably the best climate science team in the world. They accurately predicted exactly the temperature rise that we see today, like 1.1 C. That's exactly what they predicted. They exactly predicted the level of CO2 in the atmosphere. And I mean like to the part per million level, right? They were the best. And then they looked at that and said, this is going to produce, quote, this is their words, catastrophic outcomes, right? For a significant fraction of the world population. And they mentioned catastrophic outcomes in relation to agriculture, in relation to all sorts of impacts and sectors of the economy. So that's Exxon predicting catastrophe multiple times and then orchestrating the denial campaign. Shell, I think they have one of my favorite statements, which is after looking at various different scenarios of emissions, and particularly the one that we've been on since they did this in the 1980s, which is just business as usual, they predicted that civilization itself could prove a fragile thing. So that's pretty amazing to me. They're predicting that civilization itself might collapse, but then they're like, what the hell? Let's just get into this denial campaign and we'll just lie about it for the next 40 years. It's just outrageous.
The amount of cognitive dissonance that you have to possess about you raking in a bunch of cash and what you're going to create for your kids. I guess they probably think that, like all of these very wealthy people think that they can build their own compound and that they'll be insulated from the effects that they've created on the planet. But I really can't think of anything more morally repugnant, to be honest.
100% agree with you. And the thing is, the CEOs and the people making the decisions, they know. They know what they're doing. They know that the products are causing this problem, and they just don't care. They don't care how many people die. They don't care how much it costs. They obviously don't care about anything, because if they did, they'd be doing very different things than what they're doing now.
Well, really appreciate your time today, Richard. How can people support efforts to bring litigation or pressure the Biden administration to take this action?
That's a great question. I don't have a great answer for that. I wish I did. The decisions to file lawsuits across the country, that's one thing that you can support locally. Let's just say that if you're in a red state, your attorney general is not going to bring this case. But if you're in a blue state, that's possible. You just got to support the politicians at the local and state level that are bringing these cases. And, I don't know that there's any way for the citizens to apply pressure to DOJ. I don't think that's a thing that the DOJ really responds well to. And, it's not something that is typically done. People got to just keep the heat on the administration and Biden to let's not have any more willows, and let's take a step forward here and do some real stuff.
Richard Wiles, president of the Center for Climate Integrity. Thanks so much for your time today.
Oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, quick break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about student debt. It's been 1 year since Biden announced cancellation. We are back, and we are joined now by Eleni Schirmer, writer and organizer with the Debt Collective. Eleni, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, we've had Astra Taylor on a bunch of times on the show, and it's a never-ending struggle here to get rid of student debt. It's been 1 year. It's the 1 year anniversary of Biden announcing that initial debt relief, 10 to 20,000 for people below the income threshold that was set, and I guess the additional 10,000 is the Pell Grant forgiveness, and then the Supreme Court struck it down. So, where are we, as an organizer with the Debt Collective? If you could just bring our audience up to speed about where we are at today.
Well, I think the big thing that we've learned over the last year is that there's a way to cancel debt that cancels debt, and there's a way to cancel debt that creates opportunities for lawsuits, that generates complex bureaucratic applications, chances for the people that need relief the most to get left behind, opportunities for loan servicers to fumble the ball and drop it. And that is we're at this moment right now. Is the president, we've seen very clearly in the last year since Biden's announcement to cancel debt, a lot of folks in the Debt Collective and activists and organizers calling for debt relief were really disappointed when the president set up the initial program. Instead of automatically canceling debt and then going on national TV and saying, folks, I canceled your debt, he got on national TV and said, guys, I think I have a plan. I think I'm going to cancel your debt. And you'll just have to fill out some paperwork, and then it'll be all set in stone. What happened is that there was a 6-week delay between Biden's initial announcement of his intention to cancel debt and his unrolling of the application. In that time, 6 different right-wing lawsuits were filed to challenge the legality of the program. Got a national injunction was upheld by the lower courts, and then just earlier this summer, sustained by the Supreme Court, blocking the effort. And what we see is that in other attempts since that time, Biden has actually discharged debt for almost 1 million people who have been in debt, student debt for more than 20 years, have had their balances totally zeroed out. And that's a curious thing. How was Biden able to do this, even though the Supreme Court struck down relief? And part of the reason why that worked is because the people that have had their debt canceled didn't have to apply for it. There wasn't a complex means testing to determine who was and wasn't eligible. It was automatically and totally canceled. And that's the way that we know that canceling debt actually works. The Biden administration is currently sort of doing a big press release around its revisions to the income-driven repayment program, which is an opportunity for borrowers to pay loans proportionate to their income. In theory, this could potentially help people lower their loan balance. What we're seeing is that folks who are trying to enroll in this new program are seeing their loan payments jump up, double, triple the amount that they had or should be paying, which causes all kinds of confusion and raises questions about why, why this way.
Well, I just want to jump in there because I hadn't heard your criticism about the lag time articulated in the way that you did, because on our show, we were very critical of his usage of the HEROES Act to cancel the debt, as opposed to doing it through the statutory authority that is given to the Department of Education under the Higher Education Act, which would just allow for the DOE to have the discretion to cancel debt more just broadly, right? But this is an issue with Democrats, and particularly establishment Democrats. I liken it to, in COVID, how we didn't expand Medicaid or Medicare, we expanded COBRA, even though that was more costly, more bureaucratic, and it's because we didn't want to let people know, hey, we could just do this and do Medicare. Yeah, and it's like this. It's almost as if he made it so much more flimsy, both through the usage of the HEROES Act, but then also the means testing that you described, which came later and allowed for that lag time where lawsuits could be filed instead of just announcing the debt and then not having people apply, just canceling it writ large. And making it a jubilee as opposed to some sort of application process. That is almost, I think, even more important than what he used as the authority, because the Supreme Court, whatever, they're partisan and they don't really care. It's the fact that he gave these right-wing groups that opportunity through the means testing and the time that took to file these lawsuits.
Right. I think that I absolutely agree with you. It's, the fact of the matter is it was perfectly legal for Biden to cancel debt under the HEROES Act. The plan that he proposed was perfectly legal. It would also be perfectly legal if he had chose to use the Higher Education Act.
Right.
So what we're left with is not the major question on the table isn't which mechanism to use. It's how strategic is the plan to actually execute this, with how much conviction, with how much understanding that this is actually, we're in a kind of lawfare legal battle over this. And Biden has to be thinking a few steps down the road, preparing for the next challenges, because they will come. This is a contested ground. As soon as the president follows through on his proposal, it's really historic. The idea of canceling debt is shifting the bedrock of the foundation of our nation. It's a big deal. It's the level of the reaction from the right is proportionate to the ambition of the policy. I think Biden should be applauded for that. And he needs to have a strategy commensurate with the actual aim of this program, ready to win. Cancel the debt and then tell everybody that you've canceled it. And good luck to the politicians and the legal firms that try to claw that back from people.
Yeah. Right. Don't say like, hey, I'm coming to let's use a football analogy. Like, we're calling a pass play. It's a screen.
That's right.
Just be defense.
You might
be prepared.
To be in that left corner.
Yes, right, exactly. Don't do that, and just call the play. Try to run the offense. It's maddening.
It's exactly that. And the Debt Collective, I wrote a story last summer for the New Yorker about the fact that old folks over age 62 are the fastest growing demographic of student debtors. And I think that's an important, that story, it's still true that people are continuing to age into their debt faster than they're aging out of it. And the fact that any attempt to sort of slow walk cancellation just increases the number of people in the last third of their life who are still hanging on to this debt. But what I want to say is that in the process of writing the story about old folks with student debt, I encountered a 91-year-old woman who had borrowed $30,000 of loans in the 80s to go to law school. She was one of the first Black women to graduate from New York University Law School. When I spoke with her in 2022, she was 91. She had more than $300,000 of debt. This was a totally bizarre situation. I, for the process of reporting the story, spoke to folks at the Department of Education who confirmed to me, like, essentially, I think their analysis was, holy shit, we really effed this up. And they began a process of looking into how this woman's debt could be discharged. Long story short, they were able to discharge her debt, which was fantastic for Betty Ann, life-changing for Betty Ann, and also troublesome for her. She wondered, if they could do this now, why couldn't they have done this 10 years ago? And if they did this for me, what's the plan for the rest of the 43 million people? So the Debt Collective has been working for the past year to come up with a legal tool that is going to go live on Monday. That is you fill out a form, some basic information about your loan, and we on the back end generate a legal memo that gets sent to the Secretary of Education.
Wow.
So we know you have the power to cancel this debt. Go ahead and do it. So we're excited. I think we're really excited about this tool, and we're fully aware that this is not, the best way to cancel. The best way to cancel debt is to actually just cancel debt, not make people have to raise their hands one by one to petition for their debts to be canceled. But we'll use that power as long as we have to until the president gets it right.
Can you tell us more about that tool? That's very exciting, and I think some people in our audience might benefit from that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're building off of the legacy of some of the initial projects of the Debt Collective with students who attended for-profit colleges who were defrauded by their college, and there's our legal team discovered that there's a particular legal clause that allows borrowers who have been defrauded by their colleges to file for borrower defense to repayment, basically saying that if they were screwed over by their college, they don't have to pay back a scam loan. There's a more legally sophisticated analysis of that, but that was basically the program.
Right.
And at the Debt Collective, we similarly worked to build an online tool to help people fill out these forms calling for the exercise of this clause for their debt to be released. And we got tens of thousands of people to fill it out. And eventually the Obama administration at the time took up this tool as part of their own. And now it's part of the platform it's one of the tools that the Biden administration is now using to discharge debt, is this borrower defense tool. So, what started as this one by one people saying, hey, I know that the Department of Education has the power to discharge this debt, please do it, turned into over 7 years of debtors organizing, going on strike, making demand after demand, and standing together in solidarity, refusing to pay back these loans that they shouldn't have to pay. The Obama administration started a process. The Trump administration tried to stop it, and the Biden administration is again trying to make good on this promise to borrowers to discharge their loans. And what we see, works is when the loans get discharged, not by borrower at a time, but when they get discharged universally, automatically, all together as a class. This is to disperse the debt. And that's the process that we're starting right now, not just for folks that attended for-profit loans, but for everybody who has a federal student loan. Go to the Debt Collective website. We're going to be having a big mass call about this on Tuesday evening to walk through. It's pretty simple, asks for basic information. How old are you? How long have you had your loan? My favorite question is how has this loan effed up your life?
Yeah.
And then on the back end, we generate some legal language that justifies why this loan is not serving this person, why they have the right to call for its cancellation. And then it sends a letter to the Secretary of Education and the Ombuds office at the Department of Education. And, you know, for us at the Debt Collective, we hope that they listen to these letters. We also see these letters as a flag for people to hold as they walk into the street, marching and calling for full cancellation for everybody. So I think it's an important and necessary but insufficient step for what needs to happen.
No, it should not fall on people. Obviously, as you've said, can you talk about the importance of this as we come up closer to the dreaded dates in September and October, where interest is resuming on federal student loans September 1st, and then the payments are going to begin to start to be collected by the Department of Education in October?
That's right. So, you know, this is a funny thing that the president has decided that the year that he's also running for re-election is going to turn on student loans. Well, he probably will run against the man Trump, who initially paused loans for people. We are wondering why.
That's a good point, and not one that I want to hear, but a good one, yes.
At this point, as you know, Biden's decision to turn payments back on is, you know, going to enshrine him as the debt collector in chief, we say at the Debt Collective. So this means that payments start, you know, the loans turn back on September 1st, payments start coming due in October. For the first year that payments, there's what the Biden administration is calling an on-ramp. I think this is an attempt to soften the blow for payments, that in the first year of payments turning back on, the kinds of punishments that debtors ordinarily face for failing to make their payments, going into default or delinquency on their loan, will be paused. So it's more or less safe to not pay loans. At the Debt Collective, one of our organizing strategies is to encourage people, if they can safely manage to not pay loans, and to join what we call the debt strike, which is this collective refusal. We can't pay these loans and we won't pay these loans. And this on-ramp year that we have is an opportunity for folks to join the debt strike without major, you know, not paying loans can be a dangerous thing. Going into default is not something on your loans can really mess over your life, and it's not something we treat lightly. But if the Biden administration has made the dumb move to turn loans back on, but provided this sort of safety belt that goes with it of blocking default and delinquency, we're welcoming people to join the debt strike. And everybody who's even thinking about not paying on their loans should definitely be sure to fill out this petition to call for the administration to cancel their loans. We're calling it the Biden Better Have Our Money tool. And so that's, I think, going to be an important part of returning, you know, as payments, borrowers won't forget that the president has the power to cancel student loans. That hasn't been taken away by the Supreme Court. It's a question now of how much conviction Biden's going to use to actually be bold and use that power.
I mean, it seemed like at least the Debt Collective did have his ear at some point in this process.
Yeah.
It was not enough. It was less than what Schumer and Warren were calling for, 50,000, but some debt he chose to cancel, even though he was using this, you know, Byzantine application process, the means testing, all the garbage associated. But like at this point, I mean, maybe you don't feel comfortable expanding on this, but I am curious what your take is. Do you feel that you still have that point of contact, of like that ability to make your voice heard on this front? Because it seems like we're in a space where he's not, you know, moving to the left on this.
That's right. I mean, I think it's an interesting question. I think I absolutely agree with you that Biden really didn't want to cancel debt. I mean, he did it with his gritting his teeth and practical.
He was the credit card senator.
That's right.
He believes in the disciplinary power of debt.
That's exactly right. So for him to make a move on this is like, you know, he really had to come through a lot of his own work to try to pass this policy. So I think we congratulate him. We're happy that he took that first step. I think the fact that he on June 30th, when the Supreme Court in the morning announced their decision that they were going to uphold the lawsuit, Nebraska v. Biden, that upheld the basically that blocked relief. That afternoon of that same day, Biden had a press conference saying that he was going to use the Higher Education Act to issue a Plan B. This is exactly what the Debt Collective had been, and others have been calling for, to say, use the Higher Education Act to cancel debt. We wish he had listened more closely when we said it's not so much which act you use, it's how you use it, and with the political savvy and strategy. Why that's not happening, I don't know. I wish the Debt Collective had, the authority to give him a talking to on what to do next. I don't know that I think it's a question of how strong we organize for it. I think we'll get the win that we organize for, which is why I really encourage folks to anybody who's interested in this and concerned about this and wants their debt or their kids' debt or their parents' debt released, should definitely join the Debt Collective, follow our Twitter, sign up for our emails, come to our meetings. I think that's going to be the way out of this. I don't have a ton of faith that Biden on his own has a great compass on this issue.
Well, I mean, really lastly here, it's Jeff Zients is now the chief of staff and not Ron Klain.
Right. Yep. And I think that, Ron Klain had been he was supportive of debt cancellation. That was a shift. I think I don't think that I don't really have, I can't give much comment. I don't have much awareness of what the internal factions in the White House for debt cancellation, but I would imagine there's lots of folks that are, this isn't their policy. They don't think this is, they have all kinds of misconceptions about who this benefits. The story, that really tried and true story that this debt cancellation is a handout for the rich elite really needs to be retired. The folks that have the most student debt are Black and brown women. They're poor folks. They're working class folks. 40% of people who have student debt didn't get the college degree to go with it. So any earnings that they would have their earnings haven't been boosted, although the debt has been assumed. So I don't doubt that there's folks in the White House who have some flat to bad understandings of what the problem actually is.
Yeah, well, and then we'll just be clear, that's just your speculation, and it was because I was speculating and I asked you to do so, totally fine. But Eleni Schirmer, thank you so much for your time today. Writer, organizer with the Debt Collective, and everybody be on the lookout for the Debt Collective's tool next week that could help you as, again, those dates approach with payments resuming. Thanks
Absolutely.
Thanks
so much for having me on. Take
care.
Of
course. Yeah. Great to chat with you.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye. All right, guys, with that, we're going to wrap up the first part of this program, the free part. But if you want to support this program, if you like what we do here, talking about the Democrats from a critical perspective, but one that's also constructive there. I mean, those were two, like, Biden should do this segments, right? 2 interviews, and I happen to agree with all of those.
Hey, what bad social outcome do you think might be linked to indebtedness?
Loneliness?
Yeah, surprise.
Oh, whoa. Well, join themajorityreport.com if you want to support us over here doing this kind of work, bringing these voices to the forefront. Matt, what is happening on Left Reckoning? I mean, both Matt and I are very tired.
Yeah, I guess a couple nights ago we did Left Reckoning. I'm trying to remember.
You did. You
Bronco Marchitich talking about
Squad.
And then this weekend for patreon.com/Left Reckoning members, R.M. Brown is going to be joining David and I to discuss the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx. So I don't know if he'll bring his soundboard or not, but it should be a fun reading of that classic.
What was the Fox host who said that the Communist Manifesto was written by Adolf Hitler in 1848? Oh, that guy, the haircut.
You got the year
wrong
right.
Guy. I know. No, Bill Hemmer. But it's because he meant to say Mein Kampf, but his brain put Communist Manifesto in the same vein.
But I'm saying, like, Mein Kampf was not written in 1848, but the manifesto was.
Right. Or maybe he meant to not say Hitler. Either way, in his brain he thinks Karl Marx and Hitler are equivalent in some way. So there you go. And on ESPN, we spoke at length about the Michael Orr updates. We also talked about the insane sexism in Spain as it relates to the Spanish women's team winning the World Cup. We also took some calls, and we had a bit of a breakdown of how we're feeling about certain NFL teams as we approach the regular season, which I cannot wait for. YouTube.com/ESVN show. Evil says, I was up with you too, and I'm dragging ass today. And then also, Tenure Drug says, make sure you flag today's interview with Richard Wiles for best of. So I thought it was pretty good too. Dan for Columbus, interesting contrast that Richard says Exxon's climate scientists were actually all on point with their predictions. And one of the climate denier talking points Jordan Peterson uses is that climate scientists' predictions are always wrong. Yeah, they're not wrong at all. So much of what we're seeing and what we've been warned about, what we were warned about 15, 20 years ago in the public sphere, once climate change became more of a more understood in the public, was the outcomes that we're literally seeing this summer. So
it's just know-nothing reaction.
Yeah, right, exactly. Do we have Binder and Brandon? Okay, well, check out Scam Economy, check out Doomed, Leftist Mafia. They do that every Thursday night. I was on there a few weeks ago. Always a good time. And Brandon Show the Discourse as well. All right, guys. The number is 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
I think I might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook.
Throw our hands up.
Ooh. Wow.
but Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up.
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
We are back, and we are still without Brandon and Binder. I don't know what's going on with them. I had to just double check again that it was a Thursday, because everything's just blending together at this point. We'll read some IMs. Dan from Columbus, I'm a Left Reckoning patron, but I haven't been watching lately. Matt, have you and Griscom ever done an episode focused on dunking on the works of Ayn Rand? My only knowledge of the content is from snippets in Burgess's book, and it sounds too stupid to be true. That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been in on Ayn Rand. We haven't done it on Left Reckoning for sure. I mean, I've read Atlas Shrugged, I've read Fountainhead.
What's your assessment of those works?
Atlas Shrugged is an insanely repetitive, awful piece of literature that like sort of restates its premise. It states its premise immediately about like how like the Ubermensch are getting weighed down by parasites, and then basically there's Binder, okay, and then repeats that for like 600 pages. Fountainhead is, I would say, if I was going to be charitable, a more
I read that in high school.
Yeah, it's a more literary, engaging book. It's the same exact premise of like the Ubermensch being weighed down by parasites, but there's like an architect sort of thing that I could see why like younger people who want to like think of themselves as capable, it appeals to them in that. So Fountainhead's it's shorter and not as poorly written.
Hello, Binder.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing well. Matt and I are a little tired, as I mentioned earlier, because we covered the debate late last night. But what is happening over on Scam Economy and Doomed and Leftist Mafia?
Yep. So on Doom this past Tuesday, we had on Kayla Gogarty from Media Matters for America, and we looked at Rumble, who hosted the right wing online video platform that hosted the Republican debate last night. Officially, they had to deal with the RNC to stream Fox News's version of the debate. And it was interesting to see what sort of content that Rumble was planning on pushing throughout the debate. They had the usual conservative influencers and personalities like Steven Crowder, but there's also a lot of far right stuff on there, a lot of conspiracy theorists, a lot of QAnon influencers have shows on Rumble. And so the episode was about that. You can check it out at youtube.com/MattBinder and doomedcast.com. And the Leftist Mafia crew, along with Ben Dixon, also did a live stream during the debate last night. So if you were watching the Majority Report one and still you want to rewatch the debate, I don't know why you'd want to, but if you do, you could check out our version at it's on all our YouTube channels, but mine's youtube.com/MattBinder. And then Leftist Mafia tonight, usual time, 8:30 p.m.
All right. Demian says, can you tell Binder that we are feeling the loss of Terry Funk, the best to ever do it?
Yes, Terry Funk, legendary pro wrestler, passed away yesterday on my birthday. Terrible birthday present.
Oh, no. Happy birthday, though, Binder.
Thank you. In fact, Terry Funk is the wrestler who we named our dog that we adopted earlier this year after. Our dog's name is Terry. We have a cat named Sabu, who is also named after a wrestler who had very many matches with Terry Funk. So it was a hard day, but he was old for a wrestler, 79 years old.
Nice.
They usually do not.
That's
live.
old.
Yeah.
Well,
that's old for a human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently, right? What's the average 70, 78, 76 in the U.S.?
I hope I get that far.
All right. Well, do we have Brandon? Okay, let's bring him in. No Nothing Dingus says, do you watch Giants pump up highlight videos to get ready for football season? I mean, I'm listening to Giants podcasts. I watch the stupid, propaganda hype videos they put out on their YouTube page. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited about Darren Waller. That's a whole nother situation. All right. Brandon is soon to be joining us. Another I am then Colladict says, Radical Reviewer has an excellent video breaking down Atlas Shrugged. Okay. Radical Reviewer. I love a good video essay, so I'm going to write that down. We have him? Oh, there he is.
Hello,
hey.
hello. Sorry, I couldn't find my microphone cord.
It's all good. You're here now, and you found it. What's happening over on the discourse?
We should have a new episode out for you this weekend, but I'm in the process of moving, so it's a little difficult to get time to find everything and record. But I'm looking forward to talking with the fellas about the debate and all of the happenings as it relates to Trump's latest set of indictments. So it's all going to be very exciting.
Well, let's then actually turn to a topic related to that, because not sure if you guys saw the X interview with Donald Trump, the counter programming that they did over on Twitter, because obviously there's
apparently 205 million people viewed on Twitter.
The views are, aka scrolled past it, and the algorithm was boosting it.
I think
into
I viewed it about 8 times.
Yes. I mean, because you loved it so much.
I meant to check out because the older Android versions of Twitter still show the actual video views. I'm going to see if I could pull up my Android device during the show and find the actual
view
views.
count.
Which again, actual view count is still just anyone who had the video playing on autoplay for more than 2 seconds before they were able to scroll away, but it still gives a slightly more accurate number than the impression, which is basically just the amount of times the tweet just showed up on people's feeds.
And it's so silly because everyone understands this. I think that is somewhat literate in media, but it's like Elon is they've lost so much money since he's taken over that he needs these juiced numbers to sell advertisements and make it seem like people actually want to use this app that was about text communication to watch long form interviews and videos. It is a baffling choice, but this guy is a total lunatic, and that makes sense. But here is Tucker asking Trump about Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, I'm interested in this response. I wouldn't say it would be the top of my list of things that I would ask a candidate, especially in this way, because I would probably lead with, what were you saying about how much Epstein likes young girls at the time, and why were you photographed with him? Why were you hanging out with him? But that's not how Tucker approaches this.
Clearly lies. Do you think Epstein killed himself sincerely?
I don't know. I will say that, he was a fixture in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
I don't know what Barr said about it either. I have no idea what he said. What did he say? He killed himself, probably?
He said he killed himself and that they were going to do this investigation. They never did the investigation. It's never been public. And they hid it. And why are they doing that? And clearly Barr knew. But why would Bill Barr be covering up the death of Jeffrey Epstein?
Bill Barr didn't do an investigation on the election fraud either, okay? He said he did, and he pretended he did, but he didn't.
Yeah.
McSwain, the U.S. attorney in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, said Barr just wouldn't let him do it. It was crazy. Barr became so petrified, so frightened of being impeached. They were going to impeach him. I don't know if you remember it.
Yeah.
It's not a big moment in history. But they said, we're going to impeach. They play a much rougher game, the left, the lunatics. And they were going to impeach Bill Barr, and he was petrified. Now, how do you not get impeached? Don't do any of this stuff. But he didn't do the job there. I don't know what he did with Epstein, but possibly he didn't.
Do you think it's possible that Epstein was killed?
Oh, sure, it's possible. I mean, I don't really believe. I think he probably committed suicide. He had a
Can we talk
life
more about
with,
Bill Barr?
Beautiful homes and beautiful everything, and he all of a sudden he's incarcerated and not doing very well.
Could be
I would
me
say
soon.
that he did, but there are those people. There are many people. I think you're one of them, right? But a lot of people think that he was killed. He knew a lot on a lot of people.
He was killed.
You think so?
I think the closer you look, I'm not a conspiracy person at all. I believe everything I hear. But yeah, the closer you look into it, I mean, the Attorney General of the United States, your Attorney General, clearly lied about the Epstein death.
Yeah, he was. Why? He was certainly.
It was like, this is what drives me insane about Tucker. Like this faux. Like I'm just asking questions, but I'm just curious. Like there's actually like reporting done on this, which is that that actually implicates Barr pretty significantly, which is that his dad hired Epstein to work at Dalton, a private school for wealthy kids. Like at least bring that up. This like idea that. Oh, we just don't know. Maybe he was doing it to help the Democrats or something. Like what?
Yeah. Well, Tucker saying I'm not a big conspiracy person is laughable because it's now quite clear that he was ousted from Fox over his conspiracy theory peddling in regards to Ray Epps, claiming that Ray Epps was some sort of federal agent or working with the FBI to agitate the crowd when he was just a standard Trump supporter who actually loved Tucker and was there on January 6th just to, try to overturn the election, that kind of thing. And so the idea that he's not a conspiracy theorist is laughable. But it is funny to see how little Trump cares about this.
Yeah, he's not very interested.
It makes me think he was not involved in any weirdness.
In the assassination, like I don't know, or the potential assassination. I mean, yeah, I think that like I would be curious to see a in-depth review of like the type of guard procedures that they had, and
they did that investigation and they came up with what they always thought or what they always claimed. But I mean, I don't know if I buy that either. Right. Yeah.
Everyone was asleep. That was the finding.
And whoops! Oh yeah, exactly. Damn, I lost track of my nap.
Yep.
In the footage was deleted by somebody. Oh.
I know, or the camera wasn't working. Whoopsie.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So there's not much there, but just a funny count. I mean, man, as they're screaming about who's more to the right on abortion, and Asa Hutchinson and Mike Pence talking about a federal abortion ban, we're talking about Epstein on the other side. Let's cover.
I mean, like
some
another
of that
good
debate.
question.
Yeah.
Sorry, but like, you hired Alexandra Acosta, who was a politician
gave the
in
sweetheart
Florida
deal
and said like, I got a phone call saying to go easy on this guy because he's intelligence. That's reported out by major publications. Why did you hire Acosta? What do you think that was about? Who actually told Acosta that it was intelligence? Like, we've never actually got a answer to that question.
Right.
Oh, I got the video views.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, it's really bad actually in terms of the ratio. I mean, it's obviously still a lot, but the tweet has 213 million views, and they're touting that. The video itself only shows, and again, this is anything playing, autoplay included, for 2 seconds or more, with the video at least 50% in the on screen, so someone could be scrolling and not scroll fast enough, and still have 2 seconds played. It's at 13.4 million views. That's a huge disparity. 213 million impressions, 13.4 million views.
And those views, like you said, are pretty cheap themselves. And it's a lot easier to like, I think, a video like that than it is to watch the entire thing. And not even 1 million people, not even 2/3 of a million people liked it.
It is a fundamental misunderstanding of what people use this platform for. I mean, maybe it might be purposeful because he needs to make money or change it to something else or destroy it. But like, people want to scroll on Twitter. They don't want to sit on their phone and watch a video. I mean, I know Tucker was pushing for the ability to kind of put it in the bottom corner as you continue to scroll. But even I find that to be overload and annoying and not something that I want to do on a platform like Twitter. But that's just
it's
a way that
ads on videos.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea that people want to like multitask while like picture-in-picture screens are on their mobile device too, which viewing full screen on mobile device is small enough to begin with, is like ludicrous. It's like I don't know, I guess it's like, those TikTok videos where it's like some like political speech or something overlaid over like someone playing like some fast-paced like mobile game or like Fortnite or something. just to like keep people's attention. That's like the boomer version of that over on TikTok.
Right.
The picture-in-picture Twitter video.
Let's cover some stuff from the debate last night. We'll just do DeSantis right here off the bat. Let's pull up the video that Matt found to start here. So Ron DeSantis last night, his performance was fairly forgettable. He didn't take strong stances on pretty much anything. He spoke less. I mean, I don't have the counter up. Maybe we can find that actually to see how many minutes people spoke. That sometimes is tallied, but I would think that Vivek and Mike Pence had him beat. DeSantis was a bit of an afterthought, and honestly treated as such by the other candidates who they seem to want to vie for third place more than for second, and I'm not sure if they have the same donors who are saying, well, we're hoping Trump gets locked up or drops out or, accidentally passes away before the election and we need Ron to be in prime position. Or if, their ambitions are just even lower than I anticipated and they feel like getting into third is the best that they can do. I'm not sure. But Ron DeSantis, you'll see him here in this clip. This is the Brett Baer asked people to raise their hand if they will still support Donald Trump if he is the nominee, even if he is convicted of a crime. And all of them raised their hands except for Asa Hutchinson. Now, Chris Christie is claiming that he was trying to raise his hand to speak. That's a very dumb move. If you're just
Okay.
He has a scratch, right? It's a very
scratching
dumb.
my head.
Just scratching my head. Yeah, I got an itch. It's quite a dumb move at that moment to raise your hand. I think he's lying. But notice how Ron pauses before he makes a decision about what he's going to do.
Yeah, and who uploaded this video?
It's Brendan Murphy over at Snapstream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he does a zoom in here on DeSantis, moment of courage.
If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
It's so good.
Let's do that one more time.
Cocked. More like Ron Weasley.
Yeah, more like it.
If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
He is not subtle with it. Why does he do the head move like that? You got to just do a little peek.
If I'm
he wanted to
DeSantis
see
next
what everyone
time,
else was doing.
I know, but you've got to be more subtle.
if I'm DeSantis next time, like, can you put me on one of the ends so I can just catch that in one sort of head movement?
Yep. Yeah, man.
He also got really mad when they asked people to raise hands about climate change, right? He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I think we're going to do it this way. For that reason. I think that's a good little strategy. Look, I think all these debates should be done like through text, like submitted answers to questions and stuff like that. I think like if we really wanted to drill down, that's probably a better way to do it than like this performance stuff.
Wow. The theater is good for ratings.
To the extent the performance can reveal anything, I think that's revelatory. And putting these people on the spot with a simple like raise your hand, yes or no, is a very funny way to see like that whole prep and stuff go out the window, because it's like, damn, like I can't be the only one on here that says it's wild because he looked to the left. He didn't look far enough to see what Vivek was doing.
Yeah.
Looked to the right, nobody's raising their hand, and then looked again to the left and saw Vivek raising his hand. He's like, damn.
Yeah. Well, this guy's my closest rival right here, and he honestly, Vivek was killing it for, I would say, the most rabid Republicans last night, going super hard against funding Ukraine, going, very fashy on Israel, and we'll get to that in a bit. But this was also Ron DeSantis, another zoom in job here by I'm not sure who. Oh wait, maybe this is not the zoom in clip of this. You'll just have to catch him struggling to smile at the end. Someone else did this, but. These were his opening remarks of the debate, and try not to fall asleep.
Is in decline. This decline is not inevitable. It's a choice. We need to send Joe Biden back to his basement and reverse American decline. And it starts
Those people have money
with
in DeSantis.
understanding we must reverse Bidenomics so that middle-class families have a chance to succeed again. We cannot succeed as a country if you are working hard and you can't afford groceries, a car, or a new home, while Hunter Biden can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on lousy paintings. That is wrong. We also cannot succeed when the Congress spends trillions and trillions of dollars. Those rich men north of Richmond have put us in this situation.
Kill
and
me.
finally, we need to lower your gas prices. We're going to open up all energy production. We will be energy dominant again in this country. I showed it could be done in the state of Florida. I pledge to you as your president, we will get the job done, and I will not let you down.
The smile.
Like the Michael Cera smile. Just like,
yeah. Remember to smile. Or it was almost like I didn't fall flat on my face, and they clapped.
they really like me.
It is. People were comparing it to the meme of the guy from The Boys getting that applause. But yeah, I mean, he just Florida.
He has negative charisma.
It's bad. And he didn't do himself any. I don't think he hurt himself in any way last night. But he definitely did not come off as the strongest guy on the stage. You got to give that to Vivek.
Well, he's in a tough position because with the Trump thing where he half raised his hand, but also with the Ukraine thing, his position on Ukraine is actually not far from a Quincy Institute, which is that we need Europe to stand up and have its own defense sort of alliance that we don't control. But the problem is it's a little bit late in the game for that. And then
I don't know. I don't believe him either.
Right, exactly. It's just a way to appeal to these people who think the Ukraine stuff is bankrupting us on the right. But Vivek takes the maximalist position. So that sort of milquetoast, I have concerns about how much of a role America plays in NATO and maybe the EU. That's boring compared to we need to not send any money
Well, he's
there.
fixated on being a general election candidate, and
Right.
also the problem is he also didn't say anything about a federal ban on abortion either, which I think is smart. I think more people care about that than say, the funding of Ukraine when it comes to actually voting. But it's indicative of his larger issues as a candidate, where he is a scared shitless guy trying to appease his donors, trying to appease all of the rabid Trump people by not even going after Trump. He didn't do so once, basically, all evening, and it just comes off as weak when you're taking more of the stance that Vivek does, right? And it's partially because he has less to lose and doesn't have a track record in government that is gonna trip him up anyway. But this is the exact kind of way that you want to brand yourself when you're trying to run against a guy named Trump who sucks all the air out of the room. You have to plant your flag somewhere. And DeSantis hasn't done that once. Even his cardinal fixation was wokeness. He's abandoned it because it doesn't poll test well. And now people don't like it anymore. And
they went hard into the I would have fired Fauci.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck, buddy.
Even when he said, Anthony, you're fired. First name basis.
But didn't mention Trump by name.
Yeah, just use his catchphrase.
Isn't he retiring?
Fauci?
Yeah, I thought he said he was retiring.
He's retired. He's done. Yeah. He's not there anymore.
He's what are we? The hypothetical firing is what
they're still shadow
really?
boxing. They're still shadow boxing the lockdowns. They're so nostalgic for a time where they could just rage against this theoretical government machine that they've been pseudo fighting for decades, and there are no more masks, there are no more lockdowns, and they're just still punch drunk thinking about it.
I don't think in a general anyone gives a crap.
I don't. I think the Vivek stuff or Vivek, whatever.
It's okay.
He the strength that we're seeing. I think Crowder crowned him the victory and stuff like that. That's just relative to the cloud of gloom that he's standing in front of with DeSantis. Like, I don't
Totally.
think, because like,
But it's all relative, Matt, right?
You have this polling thing, right? Like, some pollster had, like, Independence was polling them live, and they're talking, and they have this polling on this moment where he calls climate change a hoax. And the thing about this whole thing is, like, it looks like the strong thing, but actually when you parse it, he's being a pussy, because he goes on to Twitter and quote tweets Joe Biden, said climate change is real, by the way. He said the climate change agenda is a hoax.
He said that during this thing.
Exactly. And it's like, you can't just like that.
I agree that was a weak moment for him. But I think overall, when he's taking the maximalist positions on Ukraine or on what else? I forget what.
Climate change.
Yeah.
Pardoning Trump.
I think that is more of what appeals to a Republican voter than being, scared to say anything controversial.
Yeah. But here's what the independent voters reacted to his climate change thing. The yellow line here is the female line, and then the green line is male, and the gray line is the total for independents.
Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax. And we have to declare independence for it. And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy. And so the reality is, more people are dying of
Men
bad
still
climate
kind of there
change
with him.
policies than they are of actual climate change.
Yeah. But if you're not really trying to be president, you can do that.
Right.
Because other guys are worried about winning in the general election, and they're not going to act in that manner that appeals to, the most insane Republicans that are going to vote for them.
Just to clarify, people are a bit confused. Those lines are connected to dials that they give voters. And when the voters feel happy about something, they crank those to the happy side. And when they're not happy about it, they crank them to the not happy side. And so that what you saw was them cranking it to the not happy side. I'd be curious to see what the Republican knobs were doing there too, actually.
Yeah, but it is also, I think that dynamic is exactly where the Republican Party is at right now, which is that you can't differentiate yourself without being a total lunatic in the primary, but then you also can't win over independents and anybody that you would need to win the presidency in the general. And that tension is exactly what the Republican Party deserves after doing this for decades and decades, appealing to the base, going as hard as possible into hate as a mask for their tax cuts for the wealthy. And now we're just at one of the natural endpoints of that strategy, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, that's exactly.
I guess I'm just that smart. No one has anything to add.
You are. I mean, that's really.
Kanye will be looked at as someone that saved the Jews.
I mean, that's the thing, though, right? Like exactly that. Like that. Watching that debate last night, it was like, we know where all these people stand. We know who they are. The one that stood out the most, though, was Vivek, because of how he was acting and what he was saying on the stage. A bit more forward than the rest of the primary candidates on the stage, because they're trying to like toe that weird line, Ron DeSantis isn't an online guy. The people he hired to run his campaign are. So he's not really married to any of this. He'll just do whatever it takes to win. Where it seems like more and more Vivek is actually an online guy, like the way he's going on TV and questioning what went down on 9/11 in the year 2023. And he's out there calling climate change a hoax. Like I think this is the guy who he won't be able to turn things around if he needs to readjust and pivot, because he's went this way. Like there's an old clip that showed up of him saying how climate change is a problem from the beginning of his campaign earlier this year. Do we want to play that? Because I think that does show that he's someone whose views have changed. But I also think that's because earlier this year, the online right was in a much different place. This dude is just going with where the online right is taking him. And he's not going to flip-flop in a different direction unless the online right as a whole does the same.
Right.
Climate change agenda is a hoax. climate change is also real. I'm not denying the underlying reality that global surface temperatures are going up, and in part due to human activity. Climate change.
Now, exactly, and I think like that previous argument he's making, and kind of what he did last night, the way he's sort of finessing it is that, okay, fine, we're burning the planet, but the agenda around it, the politics around it is the hoax. It's kind of like Tim Pool with the old abortion thing.
Yeah.
It's like, look, the real thing is horrible, and it's actually like reflects pretty poorly on how the society is structured.
Right.
But people are really overreacting about it.
And the overreaction is the hoax, not
That's
the
the real
actual-
problem we got to address.
Yeah, silly.
I'm surprised he didn't go into like IMF, like deep growth conspiracy theories.
Yeah, maybe that's
what
next.
that like that's the agenda that he.
Well, they're
needs.
not. He's not going to be degrowth. I mean, that guy's a hedge fund
of course
healthcare
not.
freak. So he wants as much growth of his like investment portfolio as humanly possible. That's probably why, in part, why he's running.
Right. I mean, this sort of shows, I think, how the more extreme factions on the right, the online right, have moved over just this past year. Like this is, they no longer can, say that climate change is not happening because just look around you. So now it's either one of two things. It's either, oh, it's happening, but we're not doing anything. So we just gotta, ride it out. We're going along for the ride. We have nothing to do with it. And then there's people who are like, yeah, there are things we could do about it, but not anything that's currently going on when it's all wrong. My way is different.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Matthew Gertz has a good short senior fellow at Media Matters for America. How populist entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy got rich? 1, found a biotech firm with hedge fund / venture capital. I mean, this is all after he got the Soros money to go to Yale. 2, buy patent for Alzheimer's drug that had failed 4 trials, raise more money to take it to the market. 3, take company public, cash out. And 4, the drug fails the 5th trial, investors are wiped out. Pump and dump.
Great. So what an ethical person. Demian, I think Vivek's strongest quality is seeing people out the trail. Agreed. Lawful waffle. Matt, it's Vivek rhymes with cake. It's not Vivek, which rhymes with Matt Leck. So tune into the next debate. We'll have some fun. We'll see you out at the debate.
Vivek, who cares? I mean,
he's not going to be president. That's
Yeah.
The people with that name that I respect, I'll go by Vivek. So.
But what
people? I saw people say like, really what, and I think we mentioned it earlier too. Like, oh, what we're really watching here is like people vying to be Trump's vice president. But like, let's be honest. Let's say throughout this primary, Vivek ends up in the number 2 position time and time again. Can you really picture Trump picking that guy to be his vice president? I mean,
none of them are going to be his vice president.
Never.
None of them.
Never.
None.
He's not.
Maybe
gonna
Kristi Noem.
Oh yeah, no.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Kanye is the real choice. Kanye is the sleeper. Like everyone on that stage looked like a loser. They looked like a loser because like Trump wasn't there, just like that one debate back in 2016, and yet he still won. The absence of Trump spoke louder than Trump being there did.
Yeah, agreed.
I still think my favorite moment, I don't know if we're going to talk anymore about the debates. I just want to fit this in here. My favorite moment is still them asking the people on the stage while they're standing up there with Mike Pence whether they think Mike Pence should have been hung on January 6th.
Yes, that was good. I love, and Mike Pence always is trying to cock his eyebrow, and Sam said something last night. He was like, he's always trying to look straight, which I thought was kind of funny. All right, calling from a 617 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Mehmet. I'm calling from Newton, Massachusetts.
Mehmet from Newton, Massachusetts. What's on your mind?
Hi, yeah. So I'd be curious actually what Sam thinks about this as well, but obviously he's not on. So, but I was having this debate / argument with my dad, and we do this often about politics, but he was basically saying, about this Trump indictment and the multiple indictments at this point, that because they weren't done, I guess his opinion is like they weren't timely. They weren't soon after January 6th, for example, or soon after some of what he did, some of the other things he did. because they took so long, the risk of people seeing this as a political indictment is higher, as like a attacking your rivals kind of thing, even though Biden isn't directing anyone to do any of this, in my opinion, at least.
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. I think the people who would consider this a attack not based on the facts in the case, but just for political reasons, would have found a reason to argue that no matter what. It could have been the very next day, and they would have argued that. I don't think it has any
It's
bearing.
too soon. How could you know already?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, but you see the same kind of thing when like they finally indict crypto people too, and then you realize that for all the talk about online about how much people understand the law and like legal YouTubers, people have a very poor understanding of the law outside of like petty crime, and even that they don't understand. And so like they imagine in their head this like type of criminal justice system where the moment you break a law, someone arrests you and then you just go to jail. But that's not even how it works when it's like not white collar crime. Certainly when it comes to white collar crime, it just takes longer to pull together a case to make sure you have a good case. The DOJ tends to only indict people they think they can actually win against. So there's some measure of that as well. But it's certainly not out of the norm for like legal cases. It's just people don't usually pay attention to the legal system.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it is. Look, I would not be shocked. I think that Jack Smith is making certain calculations, and they're outside of the Eileen Cannon documents case. The Georgia, Fulton County prosecutor Willis and Alvin Bragg in New York are taking cues, I think, from Jack Smith, because they know that is the big fish, the January 6th federal case. That's why that's going first.
Yeah.
That's why that's likely to happen. I believe that the date Jack Smith requested is the 2nd of January, but I'm not sure if that's set in stone yet. Bradley, do you mind looking that up if it's officially the 2nd? But the Iowa caucuses, January 15th. Like, they actually kind of screwed themselves if they wanted Trump to not be able to run again, because I think that once, the trial concludes, much of the voting's already going to happen, and then Super Tuesday's early March. And that will be before, I think, all the other 3 trials at that point. So, but if the goal was to weaken Trump when he is the general election candidate, it is good timing in that way. But it's really hard to know the future. And I think it's not a terrible point by your dad, but I don't think it really matters.
People do that all the time. Like Crowder's like they're talking about like there's rising COVID cases, so everyone's freaking out about masks, and they're doing this just ahead of the election. It's like the election's a year away.
Yeah, right.
Like,
right.
When are we supposed to do this stuff? Like when is the timing not suspicious? That's why every time something happens, like it's coincidentally when the Biden stuff happens.
The most impact would have been like, say, what happened to Hillary Clinton, where that was
October surprise.
What's his damn name?
Right, I was
Comey.
Comey, right? I was gonna say, Republicans heard October surprise, but didn't realize that they meant that usually means the same October.
It's the wrong October.
That election year.
Yeah, right.
The month before the election, not the 13 months before the election.
Exactly.
It's not just any October.
It's not any right.
I mean, that's just like
scary because of Halloween.
Republicans are just low information. Like that's the problem. They don't understand anything about the way the world works outside of like their suburb. So it's really easy to manufacture like moral panics for them, because half of like what QAnon was preying on was that just people not understanding how the government works and being like, what? They do what? They do that? And it's like, dude, you're like 55. You don't know how like voting works here. Like it happens every 2 years or so.
Well, thanks, Mehmet, for the call.
Maybe just corroborate. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Just final thoughts.
I think this might corroborate what you guys were saying about how like people don't really understand the legal system. But I've seen many videos of people interviewing Trump supporters at rallies and stuff, and they're just saying like, "Yeah, would you still vote for him if he got indicted again?" And then they're like, "Oh, well, the other indictments didn't really go anywhere." And it's like, no, the case is still going on. Like, it's not wrapped up. Like the indictment just happened. In some cases, some of them were a couple months ago, I guess. But I don't know. It's weird to think about how little. I guess it's just the lack of political education in this country. I guess has something to do with it. But yeah, thank you guys for taking my call.
Appreciate it.
Also,
Thank you.
propaganda, legal propaganda.
Right.
SVU, like when you're watching the show, it's
Yes.
just like, rape happens, dun dun, it's credits, they're in court now, dun dun, they're in jail now. It all happens in an hour. It just gives us like this false sense of things moving very quickly.
Yeah. And rape, only like, single digit percentage provability and it might be
Probably
1%.
more rape solved on that show than in a lot of municipalities.
100%. And the rapes on that show are always like very creative. I don't know if that's
Tied to the headlines?
Yes. I love when like they just very clearly rip off like Casey Anthony or something
There was
like that.
when Paula Deen was busted for saying something racist. They did a mash between Paula Deen and some other thing that
They
was
did, and I'm forgetting that. That was, oh gosh.
In the non SVU one, they did a Elizabeth Holmes one, but like in that one, she kills the Sunny stand-in, so like they have to like arrest her for that. That was a good one.
It was a mix of Trayvon Martin and Paula Deen, and it was as if
Crazy.
Paula Deen
that sounds
murdered Trayvon Martin. It was the premise of
about
the
that
episode.
I like the gamer one.
On the
That
Upper
one
West
was-
Side or something.
Oh, and the Chad and Stacy one. That one was really funny. Where they like spent like half the episode looking for someone named Chad and Stacy, only for them to not realize it was like an incel thing. And
Oh.
Ice Cube was just like, "What?
They didn't do a Google search? Okay.
No, they're cops still."
No, that's true. Calling from a 414 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from?
Hey, Dave Dave from Milwaukee, and I just wanted to call about the interview yesterday with Catherine Stewart. We just had the GOP debate here yesterday, since Milwaukee's on a lot of people's minds. We've had a lot of like massive wins politically and socially, and even for myself personally over the past 5 years, and we want to continue building on those. For instance, we have, an extreme minoritarian setup right now because of extreme voter suppression, especially in the rural areas. So that, basically we will get, 55, 60% of the votes. And then that will translate to only, 30% of the seats in the state assembly. But, under those conditions, we have been able to continue to fight. We got a very solid court in there with Janet Protasiewicz, and she got in there with I personally hit probably 1,500 doors and captained 100 other people to hit tens of thousands of others. So, and we significantly boosted turnout here in Milwaukee for that. So now the business elites and the GOP understands this, right? So what they did is they basically kind of forced Tony Evers to sign their budget, which provides no new funding for education, right? Let's make that clear, because like a lot of people are celebrating that line item veto of like that 400-year thing, but But what that's called spending authority. So he allowed municipalities to boost up their property taxes. That's not actual funding, right? That's not money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just wanted to note that bit. And then that budget also stripped the Milwaukee Police Department of civilian oversight. So like back in 2020, they thought that it would be a good idea to, dump a bunch of concussion grenades into like a crowd of people, including the mayor. This is on June 2nd, 2020. And so our current mayor, they had their whole leadership fired pretty much, cleaned house, and that was done through the Fire and Police Commission. Well, that got reordered with this new budget, and there's no civilian oversight now. So that's done. So that was like a tool that was used by the public to, actually like exert, some control over our lives, that's been taken away from us by this governor and by the GOP, right? So that's that. And then the other really dangerous thing, probably the most shocking thing about this that really just was not necessary at all, was Evers had expanded private vouchers to a historical extent, right? Because like a lot of people don't understand private vouchers and how they work because they're really based only in a handful of states. But like here in Milwaukee, in only parts of those states, right? Here in Milwaukee, basically what you do is this is something that's available to all people, right? So you get a little bit less in private voucher money if you're making, over a certain amount of money, right? But, basically you can send your kid to a Catholic school, and then that Catholic school will basically just take all that public education money away from, right? So now the other thing that has to be understood here is that under those conditions, like it allows for situations like we saw in Mississippi with that Brett Favre.
Yes.
So
the siphoning and stealing of money for like these corrupt kind of individual focused ends.
Right, exactly. And, so like, it's really about, well, first off, like some people are cool with it because it allows certain people to kind of like be kind of like hogs at the trough, just kind of like, wealthy people like stealing even more money, right? From working people. And then it also, denies working people actual funding that, through TAMF, right? That's food assistance that, and other types of grants that Brett Favre was stealing from. So basically it allows rich people to steal more money, and it denies working people even more funding to, improve themselves. You know what I mean? So when you kind of understand these things and how they work together, you kind of understand that when Democrats kind of sign on to this sort of thing, that they are, they're kind of forced to do it, right? And I understand that, like, at some points you have to give up a little bit to get a little bit, but there's just certain things that you have to have like a strict line on, right? And you're understood, and a lot of these Democrats are understood as like being reasonable now by these, regional elites, people that run outfits like Northwestern Mutual Life, which is a big company here in Milwaukee, and these kinds of outfits. So, and just want to make one other note on this. So Nashville and Milwaukee were like finalists for this GOP convention in 2024. And Nashville smartly demanded that the GOP pay them like a significant amount of money in order to do this, because these kinds of things do not spur economic development, because basically you have to shut down the whole city, and the people that actually use that city are not able to get into that city to actually spend money. You know what I mean? But so you guys understand how that works. It's very similar like the Olympics and this kind of thing. So it's just really a scam.
Yeah. And
so they're having this GOP debate here ahead of that convention next year, right? So, a lot of workers, we had several hundred people out there yesterday, marching against this, and we'll continue to build on that, right?
Yeah.
We'll continue to be active, driving people out to the ballot box and this kind of thing. But it really needs to be understood, right, that Democrats, at the end of the day, unless they're forced to otherwise, right, they are going to, they are going to turn on working people. It's just, you know what I mean? You have to make sure that that you can discipline them when they go against our interests.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
David, do you have like what's Wisconsinites' feeling about like the relative success of the Minnesota legislature and the type of like the left wing block that you see in like the city council in Minneapolis and stuff like that? Is there any sort of hope that even despite like sort of the structural issues in Wisconsin, that energy might be able to translate? You guys might be able to capture some of that?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that what's been going on in Minneapolis is very similar to what's been going on in Milwaukee. We both had very similar similar things going on during 2020, when it comes to like social organization and kind of like police police abuse, and having some and pushing for participatory budgeting, this kind of thing, and making sure that we have some civilian oversight over the police. So definitely. You look at somebody like Johanna Omar. She's been a great. She's a former union member herself. Been a strong advocate of unions and our right to seek self-determination and have continued development within our cities. I'd say Milwaukee and Minneapolis have been kind of coming up under similar social conditions and material conditions. So, and I think that there's some very positive things going on in both. It's a question of securing those and then building off of them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Thanks for the call, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you for the update.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good call. Dave from Jamaica, real cops don't work that hard. SVU could never get me to buy in because of that. I mean, it's just trash TV.
It'd be funny if SVU had they had the same clearance rate for those investigations as the real world. So like 60% of the episodes we don't know. I'm
gonna ask you to get up here because we do need a shofar, I believe. This is for a real staple of the community for Lux. Emma and crew, can the Discord get a birthday shofar for our member extraordinaire Lux? Can't say enough good things about them, but I'll try to keep it short. Shofar, and then we'll read it. Thank you, Matt. Lux is one of the rocks that is the foundation of the hallowed halls of the MR server. No measurement yet known to man can give us the dimensions of their heart. No voice goes unheard when Lux is around to listen. They've helped guide some members like this guy to be able to think more critically about the systems that oppress us. They were one of the members that nudged the show to expand MR's covers of trans issues, and we could not ask for a better ally than you, Emma. As bad as the American carnage gets, the ghouls won't win because we have people like Lux in the fight. We love you, Lux. We love you, MR crew. Left is best. It's a lovely message. I agree. Lux rocks. So happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, and thanks for the nice message, Star Fox. Leftist Claybot says, Norman Bates made for a very convincing Ron DeSantis in the debate. Norman Bates? Does he really look like Norman Bates?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
All right.
I personally like the I personally like the Homelander. I know he's not the personality wise, absolutely not, but in terms of his facial, his tics and his facial expressions, I think so.
He has no personality, but not because he's a sociopath, because everything about him is focus grouped. So he's just looking around smile or frown or it's not he's not trying to make up his mind in any internal sense. He's just looking for what other people want him to do at that moment. He's just an empty suit, but I
know, and no one went after DeSantis last night because Christie tried that with Vivek, saying that he was the Chat GPT candidate, which was that dude's lost his fastball when it comes to insults. That one sucked. He was trying to recreate that Marco Rubio moment, right? Remember when he caught him saying that same thing 3 times and goes, "Here you go." I mean, that was great, but he couldn't do that last night. Christie's he did not have a good performance, I think.
Vivek is more like the TED Talk candidate this time around. He's like Andrew Yang plus.
Yeah, exactly. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator. People can't afford gas or a house or groceries. Inflation is 9% in Florida. You effing muppet. Chris Sherda. Have you all discussed the Billy Bragg cover Rich Men North of Richmond called Rich Men Worn North of a Million? No, because I just don't care. But
yeah, I like Billy Bragg, but I just don't care about that song.
Even though they structured the entire first 15 minutes of the debate last night around rich men north of Richmond, so
very important topic.
Still not listened to the song.
Yeah, the working people of America are clamoring to know more about the Billboard Hot 100's #1 artist.
Mm-hmm.
That's the real.
It's just not a very. It's just not a very good song. It's kind of like
the real America.
I wouldn't even say mid. It's like it's
No,
just
it's
a bad
not.
song. Like I turned it off 20 seconds in when he rhymed like away and away at this. I was like, this is not. No, come on.
Well,
you gotta
that's
earn
Vivek's.
That, bro.
He's stealing Vivek's whole damn flow. But also like that song is 80% chorus, and I don't like.
Oh yeah.
What happened to the build up? It's just yeah.
It's just like fake passion. It's like all astroturfed, and like whether he knows it or not. So the kind of genuine passion you'd need to make something like that work, like rhyming the same word a trillion times in the same song, or like being all chorus. He just doesn't have it.
Yeah, agreed. What should we do here now? What do you think? Nikki Haley, sure. So another moment. Go ahead.
I was just laughing because I know what's coming.
Yeah. Another moment from the debate last night. Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, they went back and forth over foreign policy. Vivek took out a maximalist position on funding Ukraine from the right, essentially saying we should not be doing so whatsoever.
Because we need that money for the border in China.
Yeah. So just like isolationist libertarian stuff. And Nikki Haley was the UN ambassador. She's more establishment. She had a more, mealy mouth kind of reaction. And then they just go full on Israel hawk. And this was particularly disgusting.
A win for Russia is a win for China. We have to know that. Ukraine is the first line of defense for us. And the problem that Vivek doesn't understand is he wants to hand Ukraine to Russia. He wants to let China eat Taiwan. He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends. What you do instead is you have the backs of your friends. Ukraine is the front line of defense. Putin has said, once Russia takes Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. That's a world war. We're trying to prevent war. Look at what Putin did today. He killed Prigozhin. When I was at the UN, the Russian ambassador suddenly died. This guy is a murderer, and you are choosing a murderer over a pro-American.
The base kind of likes Putin, by the way, or the freaks that like Vivek.
Suddenly died. Sounds like the vaccine.
And you are choosing a murderer over a pro-American country.
First of all,
Not a country to love,
Nikki, I wish you well in your future career on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon.
I'm not on
but
the
fact
board
of the matter
of Raytheon, and you know,
Not bad.
Not bad
You've
at
been
all.
pushing this lie all week,
you want
Nikki.
to go and
For like a
defund
farmer,
Israel.
bro.
You want to
Okay, let me
give
address
Taiwan
that.
to
I'm
China.
glad you brought that up.
Go and give
I'm going to
Ukraine
address
Russia.
each of those right now. This is the false lies of a
It's like pointing at each other. So juvenile. They're like touching.
So the reality
America less safe. You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows.
And you know what? The
It
foreign
shows.
policy experience that you all have shows in the pointless wars we've gotten into. I have to address that. So our relationship with Israel will never be stronger than by the end of my first term. But it's not a client relationship. It is a friendship. And you know what friends do? Friends help each other stand on their own 2 feet. So I will lead Abraham Accords 2.0. I will partner with Israel to make sure Iran never is nuclear armed. But you know what I love about Israel? And I've been there probably in the last 10 years more than most people on this stage. You know what I love about them? I love their border policies. I love their tough on crime policies.
Yikes.
I love that they have a national identity and an iron
the
dome to protect
anti-imperialist.
their homeland. And so, yes, I want to learn from the friends that we're supporting. And what puzzles
you
me
wanna cut the
is, I want to learn from those and apply
you,
those to protect
it's
our
not
homeland,
that
Nikki.
Israel
That is
needs
the answer.
America.
Can we
America
move on?
needs Israel.
Okay,
They
Governor
are the
Governor DeSantis, you were mentioning.
I mean, like,
Oh my
it
God.
could be
So much here. So
you,
much.
you could argue. You could argue that they. Brandon froze. Oh, there he is. He's back. You could argue that in Israel, in many ways, learned about their system of settler colonialism from ours and what we did to the indigenous people in this country, and now they're doing it to Palestinians, and then we can learn it back from them. That's honestly what you call. It's called brainstorming, right? You test it out once here. Israel's border policy of
Their
apartheid.
Border policy. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm pro apartheid.
Yeah.
Advancing them.
Yeah. Apparently our border is not deadly enough. we also need to be essentially occupying Mexico. Is that the case? And making them second-class
But that's
citizens?
the thing. Like all these people that are like, oh, Vivek really like showed a change on this sort of question. It's like he can't do this without glorifying Israel's like concentration of Palestinians in like smaller and smaller areas.
Well, they like that, and he's also overcompensating for being a little darker skinned.
But there's that. But and yeah, like, and then it's like, oh, we need to like maybe drone Mexico because we need to send a message to China. And like this, I mean, and to the Nikki Haley point of like, Ukraine is a lot of things. It is being invaded by its larger neighbor, nuclear neighbor. But to call it just the front lines in our war with China is, I think, exactly the problem with America being the guarantor of security in this world.
Yeah. But luckily, really, I would imagine most of the people in that audience didn't really take in any of the substance. Most of them probably were more like Ann Coulter here, who had this to say. And by the way, Ann Coulter published in the New York Times in the last 48 hours. So good for them, right? Getting these voices heard. We need more Ann Coulter. This was her take over it. Nikki and Vivek are involved in some Hindu business, it seems. Not our fight. So
thank you, New York Times.
Yep, much appreciated. That's probably closer to like what most Republican viewers really see when they see those two people cashing it out.
Yeah, so that was Frank Bruni, Ann Coulter, and Stuart Stevens, another like Lincoln Project adjacent guy. I don't think Trump will be the nominee, in quotes. 3 writers preview the first GOP debate. Nice.
Well, that's not going to age great.
3 writers preview whatever Hindu business went down in the first GOP debate.
All right.
It's really not shocking anymore, though. Like, this is just, part of the course for the Times.
Oh yeah, no, the Times like love to do that. They'll post like 9 articles by like just outspoken racists, and then they'll let like their black columnist post something about police brutality, and people go like, they post everything there.
Yeah. Iowan Ryan DeSantis looks like Scott Peterson. Also a Florida man, if I'm not mistaken. Is that no?
I don't remember Scott Peterson. I don't really know what that's.
The murderer of his wife, right? The guy.
Sure.
Lacey Peterson.
Wasn't that Florida or was it California?
I don't follow stuff like that.
No one cares. But I mean, back in the day, when like People magazine was a thing, I would read that when I was like 15 or so.
California, Central California.
Never mind.
Modesto.
Never mind.
Why was that notable?
He killed his pregnant wife, and they were attractive and white, and so it was on every tabloid.
You know how there's always these cases that
pregnant women murdered by a husband. Crazy.
I know.
California is basically just woke Florida, right?
Apparently, and also like that example kind of flies in the face of something that Jordan Peterson has floated, that women would be better protected if they were from rape and violence, I guess in general, if they were property of men. So. Fart Twain, I'm all in on Burgum after seeing the debate.
Thank you. Yes, a lot of people sleeping on Burgum after his great performance.
Listen, how he got there is, I gotta say, I gotta give the guy credit.
It was Burgum's flu game.
$20 gift cards, baby. That's the way to go.
A joke. Yeah,
and he tore his Achilles playing pickup ball. So
and he still made it. Did you hear that?
Right.
Yeah.
What's the $20 gift card thing?
Oh, he basically, you had to get at least 40,000 individual donors across, I believe, at least 20 states to qualify for the debate stage, and he did that by saying, if you donate at least $1 to my campaign, we will send you a $20 gift card. So he basically got a bunch of people to donate $1, and in return, they made $19.
That's so embarrassing.
Isn't that like bribery? Are you allowed to do that? I thought there was like a cap on gifts you could give out. Like they tried.
The mayor of Miami tried to pull off a similar scheme, but apparently no one really bid on this one. He said, donate $1 to me, and we will put you in a raffle to fly out and see an Inter Miami game with Messi. Apparently, he didn't realize that Republicans think soccer's for pussies. And
That's good.
Yes, yes. Right, exactly.
Messi who?
Yeah. Tom Lofink, happy EmMajority Report Day. Here in Britain, Labour Party leader Sir Keir Starmer has dropped the party's pledge to guarantee gig workers' rights. Yes, the Labour Party is backing off of workers' rights. God damn it. Also, Emma, I concur. You've done a great job over the last couple of weeks. Thank you very much, Tom.
The example of the Labour Party, one, I worry that like the Democrats might be as successful in purging their left flank as Labour has been theirs, but like. It's crazy. I don't know why you remain in that party at this point. Like, especially like a parliamentary system. Like, you got to start something new. I mean, maybe we have listeners who are have a different position on that, but it seems more helpless than even the Democratic Party here because.
Well, they're feeling their oats after expelling Corbyn,
and it's much more centralized here. Like, we have a much more diffuse sort of party system that's like it's just different kinds. Like, we don't have party membership the way that they do in the UK. Like, but like the Labour Party is just junior Tories.
Yeah. Demian, can you tell Binder that we're... Oh, I already read that one. Bobby Digital, amazing there was a debate last night and none of the people decided it was even worth taking shots at the clear frontrunner who wasn't there to defend themselves instead of arguing over things that won't play at all in a general. Are they really that bad at politics or is it just that the GOP has absolutely nothing to offer outside of their media circles? I think it's
not only did they avoid taking shots at him, not only did they avoid taking shots at him, they literally said they would help him get out of the crimes he committed.
Yep.
And he would not do the same for them. Let's be very clear.
Right.
He would not return the favor. He would not support them.
He didn't support Mike Pence when he was
extra cut.
You cut out and then it was there was a delay, but like he literally didn't support Mike Pence, Brandon, when he was potentially going to get hung by some of his supporters. He just anyway
left him out to hang.
Yeah. So they say. Nate from Cape Cod. I was expecting more energy from Doug Burgum last night, but then I realized I had confused him with Perry Johnson. Ryan and Callie. Objection. Assumes facts is not evidence. Show me some evidence Bill Hemmer has a brain. And that's from what I said earlier. All right, let's do something else here. We can maybe move a little bit away from the debate. I think we did some good coverage of that. Which one? All right, Bradley, you brought this back, so you clearly have an affection for this clip here. This is Newsmax's Chris Planty, Chris Planty / Deep State Plant. Who knows?
And this is their version of the Five called the Right Squad.
Oh my God! Why can't they just come up with their own stuff?
It's their own, like, we have a fun like daytime water cooler show. We yell at a liberal, like.
Yeah, great.
It's easy to produce.
Right.
How can anyone love a cat more than a dog?
Because cats are adorable.
Oh, that was an ad. Wouldn't shock me if that was Newsmax's play.
Yes.
Sorry, the Fox News player is so terrible.
Is this a Fox News player or Newsmax?
No. I have the debate stream.
It is horrible.
Fox. It just literally it auto plays ads. It has a terrible pause function. It sucks.
Regardless, that got us a little bit alert, right? So we'll be able to pay attention to this brilliant kind of thought experiment that they're engaged in here. Apparently, the song "Fat Bottom Girls" has been removed from Queen's Greatest Hits compilation.
From like from my understanding, and I think they cite this in the piece here or in the segment, which is that it's for like kids. And like, look, I would let the kids listen to Fat Bottom Girls, but like it's not really my politics to be like, oh, Christians are creating different kind of art that doesn't expose them to every word Eminem says, like, or they're censoring it. Like, I don't care about that stuff.
Yes, but and honestly, our lives are better for it because I can't imagine caring about this stuff in the way that Chris Planty and the Newsmax The Right Squad do.
Don't say fat. You can't say fat. That's offensive, to some people. Wokeness coming for the band Queen? My. For what? You'll never guess. for one of their most popular songs, and it's being canceled. Fat Bottom Girls make the rock and roll go round. Originally on their greatest hits compilation, but it's not on the release of the latest version on Yodo. It's an audio platform aimed at a younger audience.
Oh, no.
It was deemed to be inappropriate. Isn't everything Queen ever did inappropriate? Aren't there
Right.
much more inappropriate songs by Queen?
Background music.
How about WAP? Anybody doing WAP?
What about Sir Mix-a-Lot? I like big.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of things. How about a good old-fashioned Lover Boy? Is that what it's called? It's called Good Old-Fashioned Lover Boy by Queen. And the lyrics are, the thing about this one, Freddie Mercury was gay. He was not only gay, he was very gay. And in that song, he says, "Let me feel your heartbeat.
They are.
You can feel my love heat. Come on and sit on my hot seat of love and tell me, what do you think he's talking about here? And tell me how do you feel? Right after all, he said, I'd like for you and I to go romancing. Say the word. Your wish is my command." Now,
how do they even find these stories? Like, how does someone come across? Oh, I just discovered that.
The Washington Post reported on this shit. Like, Yoto.
serious?
Have you ever heard of Yoto in your
Never.
fucking life?
I actually have, because they've pitched me before as a tech writer, and I'm familiar with it, which is why I sent you guys the link to their website. Please pull their website up online and tell me if you came across this, and then scroll down a little bit to like the photos and the trending media on this Yoto player. And tell me if you wouldn't, upon seeing this, their homepage website, automatically know exactly what the target demographic audience for this platform is, and how you could possibly find any issue with this decision from them. Please pull this website up. Other than that, they're promoting the Queen thing, but then scroll down for the rest of the website. You just need to see. Keep going. Look at the trending content. That's what the device looks like.
Yeah, this is for children.
Look at this trending content.
Yes.
Can we get some of the titles there? We got Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. We got the Juno Valentine collection. We got Row Your Boat and other preschool songs.
Daniel Tiger, the PBS show, Kids Bop.
Okay. Winnie the Pooh.
Look, I think
Stuart Little.
I think the Queen song could be seen as like an affirmation, sort of body positivity song. I think like properly in a society that had like didn't have sort of pathologies around weight and stuff like that, like we could understand it as that. But as far as like a corporation playing it easy and say, hey, maybe we don't want to put fat bottom girls onto this streaming service that we're marketing towards very conservative, probably like socially repressed parents, like for their kids.
I mean, why do they want this sexualized song on the album? Is it? I mean, are they
why do they want to sexualize kids?
Are they groomers over there at Newsmax?
Do they want kids to think about asses on bike seats?
Yeah, many people are asking this question. And I'm also old enough to remember when there was a conservative moral panic about like all rap music and that being exposed to children and them obsessing over, lyrics and songs being involving sex or swearing or guns or whatever, and drinking, and for some reason they have abandoned that. I'm not exactly sure, but
it's almost like their commitment to all this stuff is extremely surface level and just meant for some other purpose.
Right.
Almost
and
as
it'd be interesting to see how this would have went if like Yodo just decided that it's just a song. Kids like all sorts of songs without really knowing too much about what the meaning is. It's a classic. Let's just put it on there. Could you imagine? They would just have the opposite reaction. Like that's their thing. Whatever's out there, they have to have the reactionary opposite reaction to it.
Yeah, because they're coming to attack you. So if it's off, then it's like they want to protect the censors.
Censoring Queen.
And
right.
then if it's on, it's like, what are they trying to do? Get young kids to think about women's asses? That is inappropriate.
Right. Like the fact of the matter is, I don't care. I get if they did put it on, it's a classic. Kids should know a classic. I get that they didn't put it on. It's it's not appropriate for probably most kids to listen to at that age that Yodel players demographic is.
I mean,
either
no
way, I just don't care.
I was singing To the Window, to the Wall, like that song, whatever, and then the rest of the lyrics are a little bit more aggressive. When I was like in 3rd or 4th grade or whenever what was it, them Franchise Boys?
No, that was Yin Yang Twins.
Yin Yang Twins.
Wow, no, it's Get Low by Little John and the East Side Boys. The Yin Yang Twins are Whisper. The Whisper.
I'm sorry. Either one. I was singing that one too, and that's
well, that's on you.
pretty graphic.
You can still listen to that. Fat Bottom Girls just didn't make the cut. It's not a banger like Get Low.
I guess so. I guess you're right. Yeah, Fat Bottom Girls. It's not at the top. I can sing it off the top of my head, but I don't think it's definitely in the top 5 of
Are
Queen
6-year-olds
songs.
listening to Queen? I just wasn't aware that was.
I think if I was 6 and I heard the song Fat Bottom Girls, I would probably think it's a fun song.
Yeah,
Right,
he
yeah.
said fat, and he said bottom.
It's bottoms.
Kids don't pay attention to lyrics and stuff. They would probably even know the words to the song and sing along without even thinking for a second what those words put together even mean.
Okay,
They can
groomer.
let Coco Melon sing Fat Bottom Girl or something.
Oh yeah.
Do kids just listen to Coco Melon? I don't know.
Yeah, so they do. It is a big thing still. I mean, my kids are a bit too old for the Coco Melon at this point, but yeah, I mean, they listen to what's on the radio. They're big into like Lady Gaga songs, and who cares?
Good
They're
taste.
just fun, classic songs that the kids love, and doesn't really matter to me. But I also get why a parent wouldn't want certain songs to be on their kids' playlist. That is, it is what it is.
Yeah. All right, guys, we'll take one more call here. Calling from a 404 area code. 404. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Did I pick up?
This is Terry.
Oh.
This is Terry from Georgia.
Terry from Georgia. What's on your mind?
Is everybody doing okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, Terry, how you doing?
Pretty all right. My internet's a
I'm
little
doing
slow,
pretty
but
good. Okay.
we
I
gonna
want
talk
to talk to Brandon. I want to talk to Brandon. Is that your name?
my name?
Do you listen to the show?
Yes.
Yeah.
I go by many names.
Pretty
but
bad
yes.
lefty also, yeah. What's your question for
I've
Brandon?
been trying
Well,
out Brick is pretty good, but yeah, let's go for it.
Right. So I have an idea to allow progressives win. I'm thinking in prep rallies, they could really use projectors, have some crowds, and project what Medicare for All does in steps, and also climate change and what minimum wage can do for them. And maybe have an advisor with them to help explain to the people, and then maybe allow the audience to answer some questions to really further understand the importance of these policies are, and maybe towards the end have someone maybe do packets with a summary of everything that was discussed, and to allow them to really understand the importance of everything, and also maybe it allows them to be patient and explain to their friends and to their families. Yeah, because most people need the visual presentation, because I do. I have autism and I can't really understand the hard stuff. And that's really the core of the problem. The visual presentation is very important. I think that can really help. What is your thoughts?
Thanks for the call, caller. We'll let Brandon respond to.
We'll let Brandon respond. Appreciate it, Terry. Thank you.
I agree. I think there are lots of different types of learners out there. And I think that for a lot of people, just the yapping, the talking is not as engaging as, a nice PowerPoint. And I'd love to see more PowerPoints. I think really the underlying issue sometimes, though, isn't just the way the information is presented, but also the underlying assumptions of the people who are taking in the information. Because a lot of the stuff you're talking about kind of assume that people understand not just the value to themselves, which I think a lot of people do, but that they're okay with also the value going towards other people. And I think that's Americans' major problem. It's not that they think that they don't deserve nice things. They're just afraid that people who they think don't deserve nice things are going to get them too. And I think that, when I talk about racism and I talk about misogyny or stuff like that, I try to highlight to other people that, you've been sold a bill of sales about racism that puts forth this idea that like Black people, while true, are the primary and only people who suffer from the pervasive structural and systemic racism that exists in our society. But you can see certain things within our society, like the rampant police state, the erosion of the social safety net, that are deeply rooted not in some specifically, not only in like a capitalist mindset, but also just this idea that like, well, if you expand the social safety net, you're going to have a lot of welfare queens. You're going to have a lot of people who are benefiting from the system that would benefit you, but you're going to have to pay taxes for it, or they don't really deserve it. They're going to, they're moochers, not like you. And so I think a lot of Americans are flattered by this idea of, flattered by the idea that they can be self-sufficient, which is not what society's for. It's not for you to be self-sufficient in a total way. You can live in the woods if you want to be self-sufficient in that sense. And that, you do a disservice to people who aren't like you, who need the yoke of poverty and disenfranchisement and disaffection, material deprivation in order to get up off their lazy asses to get a job. That's the only part of the Anthony Oliver song that I listen to, the part about the fudge rounds and the welfare or whatever. And it's just like, that's just a pervasive thought in America. Like, yeah, I could benefit from these things, and I probably do benefit from these things, but I'm willing to cut off my nose to spite my face, because what if like a brown person benefits? So I think that there does need to be a real reckoning with the way we present information to people, not only because Americans aren't very good at taking it in, generally speaking, but also just like the context of American individualism, the racism, the misogyny, the various types of xenophobia that have been socialized into people from young ages, that makes them think, well, I can do everything by myself. And if we start offering these programs, people who don't deserve them are going to get them. And it's not just always Black people. The whole thing surrounding, paying off college student, or rather abolishing student debt, is predicated on like, well, you don't want rich people who can afford to pay to not have to pay their debt. That wouldn't be fair either. It's like, it's not about being fair. It's about like the most equitable outcome, not about fairness in some sort of very like abstract or shallow sense. And so I agree that I think, projectors and visual information and having those things, like one thing that made Obama very successful against Hillary Clinton is that he had people going around to door with a fucking iPad showing like everything that you might need to know about Hillary and his plans. And that on an individual level can be very helpful. But I think, you can't undercount how much our culture divides us in a way that like can't just be overcome by presentation. But yeah, good question.
Great question.
I want to say that.
Great answer.
Just want to add that Obama was definitely not having people walk around with an iPad in 2008. It did not exist. But I get point taken.
That's my. I can't imagine a time where iPad didn't exist. But actually engaging people.
I wouldn't want to live in the world
on a door-to-door basis. I wouldn't want to live in the world without iPads and Bitcoin.
That's my reason for existence. All right. Well, we're hanging up the calls. Gonna read some items and get out of here, guys. Kowalski's Tinder profile. Hello, ladies. Are you tired of the city soy boy beta dating pool? Well, how do you feel about an alpha Angus beef producer? That's right, ladies. The city folk might have cats, but do they have calves? Are you tired of being judged for having plants all over your house? Well, I've been looking to turn my greenhouse into a green home, if you catch my drift. This can't be Kowalski. You're funny, but I also feel badly when Kowalski's...
Yeah, it's a little bit insular to be referencing other IMers.
Yeah, I just, let him represent himself. The Elder Scrolls, I think the caller hit the nail on the head of one of the primary problems facing the Democratic Party. Even when they are totally on board with progressive policies, they often so often fail to message properly. Agreed. Space Case, my dad was a huge Queen fan, and as a kid, I thought Fat Bottom Girls was just a funny song about butts and bicycles. Also, who didn't know the lyrics to Colt 45 and 2 Zigzags before knowing what a Colt 45 or Zigzags even were?
Right, I think it's fine to play those songs for kids. I just understand why someone wouldn't and don't think it's a big deal.
I make it my politics. Either one way or the other, I'm going to be mad about it, and you know, it's going to be a principle for me.
Yep. Why I left the left, because they took off Fat Bottom Girls from the Queen Best Of on Quibi.
Yeah, because they don't have the uncensored Laffy Taffy.
Wait, by D4L?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the tip drill music video.
Oh shit, we're getting to the real 2007s. I may not remember when iPads came out, but I remember 2007 Southern Rap Takeover very well.
I mean, I saw that on on the Kids Bop version of the Black Eyed Peas song, they don't use the real "Let's Get It" blank. They say "Let's Get It Started." And for me, I mean, this is like 1984 all over again.
Exactly. That's George Orwell warned us about that.
Freighter 12. My favorite part of Atlas Shrugged was the girl who kills herself when she realizes she will never be one of the wealthy. Oh my god. Okay, 3 more. Ben from Ohio. Legal accountability will help a lot, but mass direct action is the means by which we can go and support climate change solutions. Thanks, guys, for your coverage of climate defiance and other activist actions. Man Shovel. Emma, to read this in Trump's voice. I have never seen so much love in the crowd, so much love and passion as they all peacefully chanted Hank Mike Pence. And the final I am of the day. Red on do lefty.
That was actually Kowalski.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it was?
Wow.
Damn it.
Wow. Nailed the perception check.
I was trying to like white knight for you and your integrity as an IMer, but I never know when you change your name up, Kowalski. How am I supposed to know? I guess that's part of the joke. Okay, the final IM of the day. Republicans love the open borders talking point. We should reappropriate this language in terms of capital and its corrosive impact on housing and jobs. Right-wingers love open borders for capital and the exploitative conditions they create abroad, and thus drive migration to the imperial core.
This is the fundamental contradiction of the whole NAFTA era, which is like we're liberalizing the border, which is mainly so people can spend money across the border and invest in Mexican companies and do like labor sort of arbitrage. And as we're doing that, Bill Clinton starts saying like, oh, well, people are going to be worried about migration, so we're going to start being very hard on the actual people trying to cross the border. And I'm just saying like this, there's a lot of people who are like libertarian kind of adjacent that say they support crypto because of the nasty government and you know how the way and you know you need to get money to move around those government restrictions, and on the exact same breath we'll say, oh, we support common sense border restrictions to stop human beings from coming around it. And if you believe that you should be able to move money across the border but we should use cops to stop people from coming across the border, you are a fascist. That's all that is.
All right, guys. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up the show. And check out Scam Economy, check out Doom, check out Leftist Mafia, The Discourse, Left Reckoning, ESVN. Appreciate you all. Brandon, Binder, thanks so much. We'll see you next Thursday. Everybody else, we'll see you tomorrow for Casual Friday.
Peace.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know